Hey, what's up, guys? Thank you so much for tuning into the video and following the directions for the day. Again, sorry that you guys have to deal with a video, but I'm hoping that it is helpful and you guys are able to replay and maybe go through this again just to get some help. So, as before, you guys have already learned a few things, right? We've already learned how to use vertex form. So remember that the vertex form, the easiest thing to get every single time is going to be the vertex, right? It's called vertex form. So let's go ahead and get that first. Now, the vertex is the H and the K of the formula, right? So in this case, right, we're going to have the H and the K. And remember that the H is always going to be lying to you. The H is always the opposite of what you see inside of that the parentheses, and then you just easily get the axis of symmetry, right? You just get the x value of that. In this case, we have H, right? So you get the axis of symmetry from the x value of your vertex, and then my pattern is always going to be 1 times A, 3 times A, and then 5 times A. Cool. Um, Now to find the axis of symmetry using standard form, well, we need to learn the way that find that is using this formula here, which is negative b over 2a, negative b over 2a. And now let's um, go ahead and write my vertex. So remember, well, if this is my my axis of symmetry here, right, the x of my vertex, negative b over 2a, then therefore my x is going to be negative b over 2a. And my y, remember that a way that we find the y is we say f of negative b over 2a. And that's just a way of naming it. That's just saying find the y when x is negative b of over 2a. In my pattern, same exact thing. 1 times a, 3 times a, 5 times a. Perfect. All right, so let's start here. So right away, let's find my vertex. My vertex is going to be the h, but remember that this negative 3 is lying to you. It's not going to be negative 3, it's going to be positive 3. And then the 8 comes straight in. My axis of symmetry, remember, it's just x equals 3. That's what it is. X is 3. We have a negative right here. So we're going to open down. And remember, when we open down, that means we're going to have a roof. So we have a maximum. And then my pattern is going to be, well, negative 1 times 1, or I guess it's technically 1 times negative 1, 1, 1 times negative 3, and there should be negative 3, and then a 1 times negative 5, negative 5. So let's get started. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start by graphing my vertex. So, right, my vertex is going to be graphed at 3, 8. We're going down 1, then down 3 over 1, and then down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over 1. And then the same thing, 1 over 1, 3 over 1, and then 5 over 1. And then here we are, all done. Right, and we get that just by using our pattern, right? Negative 1, negative 3, negative 5. We went down 1, down 3, down 5. Okay, let's do number 2. So for number 2, we've got standard form. So let's go ahead and use our negative b over 2a. So remember, with standard form, we have ax squared plus bx plus c, where 4 is going to be that b, right? B is going to be whatever numbers in front of that x. So if my b is 4, then negative b would be negative 4 over 2 times a, which ends up being 2 here, right? 2 is my a. So now that means that we've got negative 4 over 4, which is negative 1. Cool. So now, how do we find my y when my x is negative 1? Well, what we have to do is we just have to plug in our -1 into x. So let's go ahead and do that. So we should have 2 parentheses plus 4 parentheses minus 3, and the -1 goes in here. -1 goes here. Well, -1 squared is 1, so 2 times 1 is plus 2. 4 times -1 is -4, and then we have -3. So -2 minus 4 minus 3, right? So my y value here, my f of negative uh, b over 2a, should be 2 minus 4 minus 3, or essentially 2 minus 7, which ends up being -5. And again, we can just do that in our calculator. I'll show you right here. All right, we're going to do um, 2 minus 4 minus 3. Enter, -5. And that's it. So I've got my y, my vertex. So let's plot that right now. Again, you can do this in any order that you want. Remember that your axis of symmetry is just the x value of that, and x is -1 here. So that's literally all you're stating, right? Because that's a vertical line. And then my a is 2. So then my pattern is going to be 1 times 2, which is 2. Then 3 times 2, which is 6. And then 5 times 2, which is 10. It's positive, so let's go ahead and just graph 2. So we're at -5, so then 6 will be here. And then 10 will be somewhere up here, and I'm just going to put it there just for the lulz, for the laughs. And then we're going to do that again towards the other direction. We're going to go up 2, then we're going to go up 6, and then we're going to go up 10. And again, should be like right up there. We're only one off. You don't have to put those points in there, right? I'm just guesstimating. But I just wanted to put them there. Ugh, I'm sorry for my terrible drawing. But there you go. That's my parabola. Now you can obviously see, right? If you're having a trouble understanding what this means, just take a look. Do I have a floor or do I have a ceiling? Like up here. Right here, I've got my house. So I have a ceiling, and it keeps going down. I can have a basement. I can have multiple floors. So that's why it opened down. Here we're opening up. My gap here is above the line. So it opens up. And then I have a floor. So because I have a floor, that means we have a minimum. And that's it. Okay, I'm going to keep on going, and we're almost done. Just a few more examples. Now, this one, this is by graphing these zeros. So what are the zeros? Well, remember, using the zero product property rule, what we can say is this is just factored form, which we've learned how to do before. What we can end up doing is we can actually graph the two zeros right away by setting either of these to 0. Now, why do we want to set them equal to 0? Well, if this ends up being 0, this could be infinity. It doesn't matter, right? 0 times infinity is still going to be 0. 0 times 127 is still going to be 0. And the same thing vice versa. If this is 0 here, it doesn't matter what the first thing is. It could be 1, it could be 2, it could be 18 times 0. It doesn't matter. It's still going to be 0. So by finding the two zeros, we can actually just graph right away our zeros, our x's. X is -2, x is -4, so -4. So let's go ahead and graph both of these. I'm going to graph it here. I'm going to graph it here. Now, there's a few ways that we can actually um, do this, and we can go about graphing this line. Now, the first way is obviously finding the vertex. Now, I know this is has a positive a, right? I know that my a has to be x times x, so x squared. So my a is 1. So if these are my zeros, right? The axis of symmetry is always going to be in the middle of your two zeros. In this case, it's very easy to see, but if you wanted to find your axis of symmetry, well, then what we need to do is just do Well, -2 minus 4, or I guess for those, right, we need to find the average of those two numbers. -6/2, which gives us -3. All right, so we found our axis of symmetry. X is -3. And that's so now we found our -3, and now you can plug it in if you would like. So again, this is the other, there's two routes we can take from here. One is plugging in our -3, which is X, right? Plugging this into here. So that's one way. Let's go ahead and see what that would look like. I'm going to go ahead and just move these over just so we can do some work. -3 plus 2 times -3 plus 4. Well, -3 plus 2 is -1. We're going to multiply that by -3 plus 4. Well, that's +1. So it looks like my y is -1. Well, remember, if my axis of symmetry is -3, then therefore my vertex is -3, -1. Well, -3, and then because we have our y, my y is -1. So my answer is going to be right here, -3, -1. Now, the way that we can avoid doing math here is excuse me, kind of saying that and it doesn't always work, right? It doesn't always work, but especially because you kind of have to know a few things in the way that our pattern works. If you remember, our pattern most of the time is going to go over 1. And so here, right, you can tell that we did go over 1 on both sides. So because my zeros here, my x-intercepts are just 2 away from each other, I know that I had to go up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. And the reason that I know that it had to be 1 over 1 is because my A was 1. We checked that earlier. So that means that since from my vertex we were going to go up 1 over 1, that means to go backwards, right? We'd go left 1 from here or right 1 from here and then down 1. Instead of going up, we went down to go backwards. Now, this is a little bit harder to understand, so you're better off always just plugging it in, and that's it. So we plugged that in, we found my vertex. Um, and let's keep going here before we do anything else. Remember, we have established that my A is 1, so it's +1, so that means it opens up. When something opens up, we have a minimum. And then my answer, my pattern is just going to be, well, 1 times 1, which is 1. And then 3 times 1, which is 3, and then 5 times 1, which is 5. Right? So 1, 3, 5. So we went up 1 over 1 already. We're going to go up 3 over 1, and then we're going to go up 5 over 1. Up 3 over 1, up 5 over 1. And this is my parabola. Parabola is right here. Boom and boom. Wonderful. All right, I'll let you guys take a look at that. And now let's move on. So actually here, I do want you guys to practice on your own. So I suggest pausing the video and um, and then trying it yourself. And I'm going to go ahead and fill this out, and then you guys can take a look. But I suggest pausing the video, trying it on your own, getting your answers, make sure you know how to do it, and then check the video. Okay? So let's get started. So first things first, we need to find my vertex. The way that we find my vertex is by doing negative b over 2a. Well, again, remember ax squared plus bx plus c. B is going to be -8 and a is going to be -2. Well, what happens when we have a double negative? Well, if we have a double negative for b and we have a negative here, well, these are going to cancel out, right? A negative times a negative equals a positive, but we do still have positive divided by a negative, giving us -4. So -4 should be, oh, I'm sorry, and this should be 2a. A, again, is -2. Almost forgot the -2. Um, See, mistakes even happen to teachers. So 8 over negative 2, and then and this shouldn't be again 2, and here, in my panic, I did this, right? This is 2a, but let's go ahead and fix those. This will be 2 times negative 2 because a is negative 2, and then this would be negative 4, negative 4. So my answer here will be negative 2. Awesome. So my axis of symmetry is going to be x equals negative 2. All right, that means my vertex will have an x of negative 2. And now we have to find my y. So let's go ahead and find y by plugging in that negative 2. Um, so let's take a look at how that would look like. Negative 2 parentheses squared minus 8 parentheses minus 8. All right, so we're going to go ahead and plug in negative 2 in here, negative 2 in here. Negative 2 squared is 4. So negative 2 times 4 is negative 8. Negative 2 times negative 8 is going to be positive 16 minus 8. Well, it looks like negative 8 plus, well, you'll see, we're going to end up getting 0. Negative 8 plus 16 minus 8, that's 0. So it looks like my y is equal to 0. So I'm going to go ahead and plug that in. Y is equal to 0. 0 goes right in here. So let's go ahead and graph my vertex here. Negative 2, 0. All right, my axis of symmetry is at negative 2. Now, careful. This A is negative 2. So if A is negative, that means we open down. If we open down, we have a maximum. My pattern is, again, going to be 1 times negative 2, giving us negative 2. 3 times negative 2, giving us negative 6. 5 times negative 2, giving us negative 10. All right, so we're going to do down 2 over 1, down 6 over 1, and then we can't do down 10. So we're pretty much done here. Do the same thing on the right side. And you can go either direction. You can go right or left first. It doesn't really matter. Um, and there you go. We're done. All right, not super bad. All right, keep going. Last one. I like vertex form because vertex form is easy to get, right? It's not that it makes it so easy, but it's just easier than all the other forms that we have that in comparison, it gets pretty easy, right? So remember, look at this. The negative 2 is always lying. So my x here is not negative 2, it's positive 2. My y is going to be that negative 7. My axis of symmetry is just your x equals 2 in this case. My a here is positive 3, so it opens up. We're going to have a minimum because it opens up. And now just take your 1 times 3, and I'm not going to do it this time. I'm just going to tell you 1 times 3 is 3. 3 times 3 is 9. 5 times 3 is 15. I'm going to go ahead and graph it. 2 negative 7, up 3 over 1, up 3 over 1, up 9. So we're at negative 4, so we're going to be up in 5, and then 5. And then I can't go any further, so this is it. We are done. And that is all. We're done. Sweet. Now for the rest of the day, just go ahead and practice your worksheet. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. And I will see you Thursday.